Oh, I'm gonna plug my laptop in really quick.
All right, we're live. All right, welcome back to another edition of Pables and Jables, where us non-critics completely criticize our favorite movies and TV shows. I'm JB.
Brian?
Today we'll be covering the fifth episode of the HBO series The Last of Us, titled "Endure and Survive." Brian, what did you think of this episode?
Dude, this episode was amazing. I think this one, for me personally, is probably like by far the best episode that we have seen so far. I think they made quite a number of changes, but this time, almost all of the changes I really liked or understood why. And the most important thing to me is that it stayed true to the very core of all the characters. I think this was by far Bella Ramsey's strongest episode. We saw the sides, and this is where it really started feeling like we were getting an Ellie that was true to the video games. And so it was, Pedro Pascal has continued to kill it. And I'm very excited for us to dive a lot deeper into this episode, how it compares to the game and everything. But by far the strongest episode for me.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all that. Honestly, it was definitely one of the best episodes, probably the best. Yeah, it was. I had everything like action, like super important character moments. We got to know some new characters in Henry and Sam, and they're so good at like like making you care about these characters for an episode, right? Like at the end when all that everything goes down at the end, it's so tragic, and you actually like you care, like, and they did that in a 55-minute episode, which is like really impressive. That's really hard to do from like just a storytelling perspective. So, yeah, I thought this episode had everything. I liked it a lot. I think the weakest part of this episode, honestly, was like the character of Kathleen. I just like didn't really buy all of that. And like I don't know. I think I get what they're trying to do with trying to put like a face to the enemy, and that makes sense, right? Like put some narrative behind why she's chasing after Henry, like, so it's, there's some kind of stakes there. But yeah, I thought like I don't know, I didn't think they really knocked it out of the park with her. I just thought like some of her motives and just like some of her like leadership qualities or lack of, I guess, just didn't really work for me. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on
Uh,
that.
I have to agree. The character of Kathleen, I thought it was just. I'm not really sure how well thought out it was. I kind of see what they were trying to go for. This character that doesn't necessarily screams a true leader like her brother was, but who was able to step in and get things done, right? And I think, I definitely see where they were trying to go with that. It would have been cool to see a lot more of Michael, her actual brother, this person that everybody seems to speak so highly of. But I just felt a lot of it just felt like just shoe-ins for characters and just kind of like throw-ins, and not really sure how well fleshed out it was.
Yeah.
But luckily there were a very small segment of the character on the show, and they're not recurring, obviously. So
No, definitely not. They both died pretty brutal deaths, so that was pretty crazy. So I guess let's maybe like start from the beginning. So I did think it was cool how they showed some background, like it was like 10 or 11 days before Joel and Ellie had gotten to Kansas City, and they were showing like the resistance, right? Like the people that Kathleen was like leading, basically like finally taking over Fedra, and it was brutal, man. Like they were basically like just brutally murdering them and like torturing them. So I thought, and then like they like cut to Sam and Henry who are like hiding out, and kind of showed how Sam and Henry like got to Joel and Ellie, right? So I'm glad they did that because otherwise I would have been like curious how they found them. So I really liked how they did that, and showing like some of that, some of the stuff that happened before. So I thought that was cool. I thought, and I even like I did think some of the parts with Kathleen were effective. Like I thought the part where like she has a bunch of people, a bunch of the collaborators, right? The people who are giving up like information to Fedra, like in that jail cell, right? And I thought that was a pretty effective part. And I actually thought like she was pretty good there. So I don't think it was all bad with her and or that like group of people. I just thought like overall like the character that her like just the character itself didn't really work for me. But I thought I don't know, like I thought they were it worked for the storytelling. It's just they could have done a little better with the character. That's kind of all. But
Yeah.
yeah, what are your thoughts on like them showing all the stuff with Fedra and whatnot? I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool.
I think in general, it was awesome to see, the darker side, which I had been wanting to see. Like the guy getting dragged with a bunch of knives stuck in his chest and just getting dragged by in the back of a car. Brutal to see, but it really it helps to establish the tone, and like how far these people were willing to go, and also how desperate they must have been pushed to. They changed a lot. So in the game, Sam and Henry, they were just other survivors who got caught in this like terrible part of town, and they were trying to make it through and meet up with some other people, right? And in the game, instead of revolutionaries, they were just cannibals. And but I yeah, so they were just brutal cannibals that were they called hunters that were in the middle of the city. But I really liked the move to make Henry a collaborator, because the core thing about Henry in the game is that he would do anything to keep his brother alive. That is the main thing. That is his characteristic, right? And another thing is that Sam is not deaf in the video game. He is, he's just a normal 8-year-old kid that Henry is overly protective of, right? And they have a bit more of a combative relationship in the video game, where Sam pushes back a little bit. He wants to put like action figures in his bag, and Henry won't let him because he just wants to keep his brother alive, right? And the thing about Henry is that he wants to keep his brother alive at the cost of his childhood, right? Doesn't matter what's being sacrificed as long as his brother lives. And that's an aspect of their relationship that was cool about the game. In this, it's a much more like caring relationship. There is no combativeness, right? So Henry and Sam, they're very, very close, and it's a much more intimate, well, maybe that's not the right word, but it's a much more emotional relationship, right? So when he's painting like the orange superhero mask over his eyes, I was like, dude, this episode is going to be so sad, right? And how do you right then the change to make him deaf is like, how do you show, right, without expressively saying that this kid is completely reliant on his brother, right? And it's by making him deaf, and just it just makes him more reliant on his older brother, and it just makes that relationship even more closer. And and it just works so effectively. And the fact that he was a collaborator who had sold out Michael, it just it sets the tone, right, for exactly what his character is about. And I loved it. I loved it so much.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. Like, I thought the changes that they made in the show actually were better. I thought like having Sam be a younger kid than he was in the game worked, and I thought him being deaf was like really crazy. I I didn't know until after the episode that like they made those changes. I thought that Sam was deaf in the game and all that. And I think it just like made it so that he had to rely on Henry even more, right? And like Henry had to do even more to like help his little brother. And like just that, I thought like it was super cool with. I always think like sign language is really cool and like pretty incredible, to be honest. Like how you can communicate entirely just with like using your hands. Like I think it's nuts. And so I thought it was really cool that like it was, and they actually talk about this in like at the end of the episode, how it's kind of like this like secret language with Henry and Sam, right? Like because no one else, I mean, most people don't understand, can't speak sign language, right? So I thought that was really cool. Like they could kind of communicate even in front of Joel and Ellie, and Joel and Ellie didn't know what they were like actually, saying to each other. So I thought that worked. I think it's super cool that the actor that they got to play Sam is actually deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was really cool how they did that. And obviously, like, yeah, why would you not like cast someone who actually knows sign language right already and just like knows how to play this character super well? So I thought that kid knocked it out of the park. I forget his name. I could look it up, but I thought he knocked it out of the park. I thought the guy who played Henry knocked out of the park.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
dude.
it was so good. It was so good. Honestly, they've been like those were like two of my favorite characters that we've encountered in the show so far. I'll
Yeah.
be honest.
So
Yeah.
I think this is potentially the most saddest story in the game, and I was really getting worried because they did a suicide like a suicide thing with Bill and Frank. So I was like kind of getting worried that maybe they were going to censor this or like pull back on its punches here a little bit, but they really did it. If anything, they really drove it home. Something else I want to point out is that Sam and Henry in the video game, they seem to be doing okay. They had made it this far on their own, but in the game, they took a very different route where they were struggling. They were struggling big time. They had just run out of food, right, and they were in a much more desperate place than they were in the video game. And I thought that was another really strong change where that really drove home the point of where they were at their it felt like like something during like the Holocaust where we were watching people trying to escape, and that's kind of like the vibes that it gave me, trying to escape from this total
Yeah.
like desperate situation. And also, another change that I liked is that Henry had never killed anybody before. He was not a man of violence. He was a guy that was just trying to survive, just get out of a terrible situation that more importantly to him put his brother at risk, and he just, and I just love that they just centered the whole relationship, just really focused on the fact that this was a guy willing to do anything that to keep his brother alive, and just so emotional, dude. So emotional.
Yeah, and to go back, so the actors who play them are Lamar Johnson played Henry, and Kayvon Woodard played Sam. So yeah, those guys are awesome. Yeah, dude. I mean, and that anything with like brother stuff hits me really hard, just because I have a younger brother. We're 5 years apart, who I'm super close with, and like, dude, anything with that like just hits so hard, and like that just this whole episode, like that's, and I was watching it with my brother, and it's just like a lot of what I was thinking about, right? Like just being in like this world and taking care of your younger brother. Now this was a little different because obviously in the show, like there was a pretty big age gap between Henry and Sam. Like it was almost more like, Henry's almost like acting like his father, really, right? But yeah, man, they did it so well. That, oh man, that was so sad. And so you knew what was gonna come. I did not know. I did not know it was gonna end like that. So I thought like, oh, maybe they'll tag along, with Joel and Ellie for like an episode, and then something will happen, and but did not expect that at the end.
Yeah.
I watched the scene you sent me from the
Yeah.
game. Again, I thought the show did it better. I think, in my opinion, that last scene. I thought the way that Ellie discovered Sam, like I thought the whole thing with Ellie being like thinking that like her blood could just, if she just like rubbed it on his wound, that it could save him. I thought like that was really cool. It shows Ellie. It shows that like 14-year-old girl, right? Like she, there's so much she doesn't understand, and like, yeah, when like when you're that age, like you would think like, oh, my blood's just the cure. Like it's just as simple as that, right? And no, it's not. And so I thought that was like how she thought that would work, and then she even like slept in the same room, right? Like she wasn't worried that he was like gonna turn and then like bite her, like kill her or whatever. So I thought they did that really well, and yeah, even the scene with, I thought it was more powerful in the show with when Sam comes out and it's like attacking Ellie, and Henry has to eventually shoot him. I thought they did that. Well, I don't know. I thought in the game it was really good too. That was pretty much like,
I'm gonna push back on that part, but I do agree that that I think the change where Ellie tries to cure him with her blood was an amazing. I think that might be my favorite change, dude, because that is so true to the character of Ellie. Of course, she would think that. Of course, she would try to save him. And I
yep,
think that was what the show has been really missing is that selfless, like kind Ellie, right? That we just haven't really seen. But the act of trying to save him by like immediately without hesitation cutting open her hand to like try and use her blood to save him, it's something that Ellie from the game would of course immediately do without hesitation, and I love that. I do think
yeah,
though that the actual death scene, I think it was much better. I think it was like by far much better in the game except for one part. But what I really liked about the game is two things. So one, I really like the fact that Henry is, it looks like Henry's blaming Joel and saying it's all your fault. when he's actually just talking to himself. And that was a part that I really wish they kept. Another thing that I liked is how Joel addresses Henry in that moment, where in the game he's talking to her with his eyes averted, right? Because like he's like avoiding eye contact, talking to him like this, and he's genuinely afraid. And I really like that because that's a man who has probably been in the same situation, right? He had just lost somebody, and I thought the way that he was talking to him was somebody who knew exactly that this guy was capable of doing anything, and he was afraid of that, because he was somebody that was in that exact moment. What I liked better about the show than the game is that in the game, when he shoots himself, uh, the game decides to focus on Joel, and show his immediate reaction to that. And I never really understood why, because like Joel was a very hardened survivor. So in that moment, he was like he's obviously horrified, and it's very powerful. But the show decides to show you Ellie's reaction, and I thought that was so much better than what the game decided to do. You see Ellie's horrified reaction, and the acting is Bella Ramsey's best moment in the entire series, dude. It is by far just that one segment, like that 1 second of just a horrified scream, very contained scream where, and just one tear dropping down. The acting was just unbelievable. And this episode went a lot in terms of, really like making me see the complete potential with Bella Ramsey's acting, but as also, the Ellie of the game, being portrayed exactly, almost perfectly, in the show, in this episode.
Yeah, so I actually agree though. I think I did like the part with in the game where Henry is like pointing the gun at Joel and it looks like he's blaming Joel, but he's blaming himself. I agree. I think that was really powerful. And then I agree with you in the show. I thought Bella Ramsey killed it with like when Henry kills himself. It's just like, yeah. So that whole they knocked out the park with I think the infected part of it a little bit and all that.
Yeah.
So I guess like so in the game, so I was wondering this in episode 4, like I was like, where's all the infected people are just kind of walking around like without any worry, and they explained it in this that they Fedra like drove them all underground, which I don't know, I don't completely understand how that happens. It's not like they're like conscious like marauders that like they have to retreat into the underground. Like they're just I don't really know how you drive like infected underground and they don't come back up. I don't know, but well they did come back up in this episode, but I want to that explosion, right, with like the truck or whatever, like I guess opened up some kind of hole in the ground, and then that like triggered all of them basically to then like and then come out of the hole in the ground. Is that how you kind of interpreted that
Yeah, I guess,
whole
but
scene?
then also, I had a bunch of questions about that one specific part because it seemed like, where that hole happened was very far away from the hole that they actually discovered. So but then I guess it's
Yeah.
just the entire underground, it's just for miles and miles and miles, right? I guess, but when they exit
See,
the
that's what
tunnel, is that the same like so that's the part that was confusing for me, I think. But that doesn't happen in the game. So it's very different from what happens in the game. It's just in the game, they were getting chased the entire time, and then all the gunshots they just attract wild infected, and they just kind of like run over, and that's what happens. So, but in this one, infected only come in like monster armies. I guess there's like not just a handful anywhere, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was weird. I didn't completely understand that, but whatever. I mean, I think it was effective. Like it worked with all of them running out. Like that was, dude, that had like World War Z vibes. Like
Yeah.
that was super cool. All of them running out of the hole, like just like just so aggressively and fast. I was like, oh my god, like that kind of blew my mind. And then
Yeah,
the big dude,
the
yeah,
bloater. That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
It was a
that was
great
crazy.
it was a great time to include the bloater. But then also, dude, you know how he like rips the guy's like jaw apart, and
Mm.
that's how you die in the game if the bloater catches you. and it's really fucked up. It's really violent, and you're like, oh, it's enough motivation to not get caught again because you don't want to die like that. It's so violent.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that was crazy, dude. The way he killed him, and then, dude, the like child clicker was
Yeah,
terrifying. Like I was like, I thought I was watching like The Ring. Like the way she was like going over the seats, like Ellie was like trying to get out of the car, and oh my god, that was, dude. It was,
yeah,
yeah, it was so effective. Like
yeah.
they do it with like the little bits, because you know we really haven't seen like that many infected. You know what I mean? And so like just the times that they do have it, and like the way that they include like just horror and like just kind of, I don't know, just just craziness is like they do it so well in like the limited, you know, the limited scenes that they have it in.
Yeah, it was also really badass and awesome to see Ellie take out two infected with just her knife. You know, I've been really waiting for somebody to take out some infected or kill somebody with, you know, just like their knife or their hands. And Ellie was the
Yeah,
first, so it was absolutely awesome.
yeah. No, I agree. That was cool, and it was cool because she like when Joel was shooting from the tower, she like they both see like Henry and Sam like getting attacked, and like she kind of looks at Joel. This is the way I interpreted this, and he kind of like gave her the nod, like, yeah, like let's like go save him, and like I got you, you know. And that was cool because that it showed like Joel actually did like begin to care about Henry and Sam, and especially when he like invited them to be like, hey, I'm going to Wyoming if you want to tag along, like, you know, you're welcome to, right? Like that's something that you haven't really seen from Joel at all up to this point. And now like I think again it goes it's like Ellie's changing him, right? Like he's caring about her, and like, and then she obviously cares about Henry and Sam, so Joel's starting to care about them and like be a little more empathetic. So I just think, yeah, all the way they do that is super cool. By the way, Joel is just like fucking American Sniper up there, dude. Like he
Dude,
would not miss. It's like, all
I,
right.
he is Chris Kyle with that thing. It was amazing.
I was like, this is a little ridiculous. It's like nighttime, and this dude has like a
Yeah.
bolt action rifle. Like you're not that.
I needed it though. I needed it.
It
Because
was
of
cool.
I needed it. I needed him to like just be super capable in like something because it was really starting to bother me. So just seeing him, you know, essentially be like Deadshot with this sniper rifle was awesome to see. I
Yeah,
just, you know, he took
yeah.
out he just equaled his body count in one episode, you know? He just made up for it all in one episode. Amazing. I'll take it.
It was cool. I just like it was very. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
saying unrealistic, and we're watching a show about zombies, but like, and I was even thinking, you know, these infected like move so like erratically, right? Like it would be so hard to just be like headshotting these things,
Yeah.
especially at night.
Yeah.
But
There was
it was
There was
effective.
one where there was like an infected that like jumped right on top of Ellie and was like hanging on her shoulders, and he just blasts it in the head from like
Yeah, dude.
however far away.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, I'll
yeah.
take it.
So that was nuts.
Yeah. I do want to just point out, right? So this episode had a ton of Easter eggs, and you know that's what I really love about the show is that you know it never forgets its source material, right? So one of the big Easter eggs that I really loved was the little settlement that they found in the tunnels, and that was one in the video game that you so the story of what happened in the tunnels is something that you find throughout these little letters, and it's told by a story by a guy named Ish, but it's a very sad story that you know at the end you know it turns out that infected they broke in and a bunch of people got surrounded and they got trapped in the sewers, and at the end of it all, this guy has to shoot a bunch of kids and himself. So because they have nowhere to go, they have no food or anything, and all you find in the video games is a bunch of bodies, and then you figure out what happened. And it's just a really sad, but really interesting and compelling side story that you just kind of like figure out throughout picking up all these letters. And I really it was really cool to see that you know included in the show. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't know what that was. I saw like the, yeah, they showed a little drawing, and I was like, who is Ish? I
yeah,
hadn't like heard about that. So that's pretty cool that they
really
did
awesome.
that.
But dude, super tragic story. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Because the way it plays out
Uh,
is
other one that I do know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it's just because you like live through this guy's like year essentially. So because at first he's like really lonely and he's like contemplating suicide, and then he finds his family, and then it turns into this prosperous settlement for a little bit, and then the whole thing just degrades. So it's just a really sad story. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, it's okay. No, that's really cool. The other Easter egg that I'm sure you're gonna bring up, but I'm gonna steal your thunder because I knew about this one. Is the Savage Starlight
Yeah,
comics.
yeah.
So the only reason I know about this is I listened to a podcast where these two guys named Jim and Aaron, they're part of they have a whole site. It's called Bald Move. They're really awesome. Shout out to them. Like I've been listening to them since like season 5 of Game of Thrones, like the original Game of Thrones. I've been listening to them since. That's how I found them. Like I was just like, oh, I kind of want to like listen to like, just I don't know, just podcasts about the show because it was so popular. And that's how I found them, and I just been listening to them like since. Like they do like almost they review all these movies, a bunch of shows. Like they're pretty awesome. So they're doing a podcast on The Last of Us, and they named it Savage Starlight, after the comics that you find. So that's the only reason I even knew about this, and they both played the game, so they're like, they're aware of all this. Um, and like the last episode, they're like, when are we gonna find? They're like, the show's been amazing, but like, when are we gonna see Savage Starlight? We're kind of getting worried they're not gonna show it, and our podcast is named after it, so they need to show it. So when she pulled out that comic, I got like really excited, because I just thought that was really cool. And
Awesome.
they even talked about the story of Savage Starlight a little bit, which apparently is like kind of is supposed to be like a mirror image of like Joel and Ellie, and like kind of their journey. And so that was cool that they had that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first appearance was actually she finds it in Bill's house. So she steals a bunch of like Bill's stuff, and then she's reading it in that scene in the car. So when they didn't include that, I was like, oh, maybe they're just gonna cut the whole thing out. But of course not. Of course they include that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah. So one more thing that I do want to point out is that that scene where Henry and Sam, they kind of like try to run away, but then the sniper shoots at them, so they come running back. So for me, that's kind of like a quick little call out to a big moment in the show that I actually feel like it's like my one big like wish that they decided to keep from the game. But it's so in the game, there's a moment right where Joel and Ellie and Sam and Henry, they're all running away from the big tank, right? It's like chasing them, and they're all running away. And they have to try and climb up this ladder. Everybody else gets up the ladder, and Joel's the last one. He's climbing up, but at the like right before he gets up, the ladder breaks. And instead of trying to help him because the tank is like on the way, Sam and Henry decides to just leave Joel, and he's like, "I'm sorry," and he just deserts him and leaves him for dead, right? And it's kind of like a big moment, but it also shows that Henry's willing to do anything again, do anything to keep Sam alive. Ellie, instead of leaving Joel for dead, decides to jump back down, and join him in the fray, and says that we're in this together. And it was a really cool moment especially for me in the game, because it was like, oh, like Ellie is net, she's got my back, always. And I wish they found a way to like incorporate that moment, because it was a really awesome moment in the game. But then later, Joel and Henry have this like big confrontation because he left him for dead, and Joel is pissed, but they're able to work it through. But I just wish they found a way to incorporate that moment.
I feel like Joel. Yeah, I feel like Joel would leave someone for dead to
Yeah,
protect
that's exactly why he doesn't.
Ellie.
Yeah, that's exactly why he
Yeah,
doesn't actually, because Joel's pissed
yeah.
because he leaves him, and then Henry essentially says, like, listen, going back for you means putting Sam at risk. Wouldn't you do
Right.
this? Wouldn't you do the same if it was the other way around? So that's why Joel like calms down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. Another killer episode. So let's. Do you have anything else to say about this episode specifically, or because
Uh,
I was just
mm,
gonna do like have us give like kind of a mid season, just a couple minutes on like, I think we're about probably halfway the season, maybe more if it's
yeah.
like 9 episodes. So, and this is kind of like a good like they got through they started in Boston, right? And they got through Boston, then they got to Bills, and they showed that whole thing, and now they got through the whole Kansas City storyline. So now, like, this is a good, like, I think it's a good, like, midseason point, where now they're like on their way to Wyoming, and obviously I have no idea what's gonna happen. So I'm just curious, like, your thoughts on, obviously both of us have like given rave reviews about this show, so I don't know how much more we can say about this season. I mean, it's been great, and I'm really excited to see like what's to come. I think it's gonna be, obviously they're gonna end it super well.
I will say, the show really truly begins like in right now with like the Sam and Henry story. That's when like the game really starts to take off. My personal favorite scene is about to come up in this next episode, so I really really hope they do it correct justice. This next episode, if everything happens that I think is going to happen, should be an unbelievable freaking episode that should blow your freaking mind. Okay, but we'll see. I'm trying to hedge my expectations just because.
Yeah, you're giving me huge expectations.
But
I don't.
dude, based off the trailer, if it covers what it covers in the game, then this is gonna be an insane episode.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I expect an insane last half, like second half of the show. So yeah, man, I'm really excited. It's been one of the better shows I think that I've watched over the last like year. And it just again shows like HBO just knows how to deliver. So I'm glad they have it, and I'm glad they're doing well with it. I think most people who have not played the game like it, people who have played the game like it. Obviously, people are gonna have criticisms, and that's what it's all about. You should, but I think overall, like I haven't seen anyone say like they absolutely hate this show. So I think they're killing it so far.
Yeah, I think as of right now the show is very very good. I am going to hold off on saying like it's honestly amazing until I think it's been very good until now, but there's some really pivotal important parts coming up that they could very easily mess up. And I'm a little worried about how they're going to handle it, honestly. But I'm gonna have some faith. I'm gonna have some faith because they've done most of the parts pretty good justice up till now, at least most of them. So I think they've been doing
Yeah.
a really good job with it in terms of adaptations. I think what they've excelled and like honestly just crushed it is making it feel so different from the game while keeping like the main part of the game, what makes the game, pretty pure and keeping that very essential part. So I think we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
I mean, I think it's already the best. I'm gonna go on record and saying it's already the best video game to like TV or television adaptation that there's ever been. I mean, I can't even think of another one that's even close. I mean, a lot of times they flop, they're not good. And
Uh,
so,
Yeah, I think Arcane might be a little bit better for me still, but that's something that was strong from start to finish. But
was that the Netflix like animated
yeah,
show?
League of Legends, yeah, it was amazing. Dude.
Okay.
Amazing. I also think
I have not watched.
I think the Cyberpunk anime was also I might still rate that a little bit higher than this. But if they crush these next couple of episodes, this could very easily beat both of them. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess from like a live action perspective, I can't even think of anything else that would.
Yeah, live action.
I would need to think about it, and I'm sure I haven't seen all of them either. Like I've never even seen Assassin's Creed with Michael Fassbender came out like 10 years ago, but I heard it was really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just decided I'm not gonna waste my time. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
all right, man. Well, I think we said what we need to say about this episode. I'm excited to see the rest of it. If you like this episode, the podcast, make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more content. As always, comment below for any other movies, TV shows that you'd like to hear us non-critics criticize. I do want to say we were both incorrect. Still very prediction bad, but we life goes on, right? We had to get out the pod. This is a bright spot in the last 2 days for me, BP. I just want you to know that. So, thanks for providing that because I've been a sad guy the last 48 hours since that loss. But hey, it is what it is. Life goes on. Life goes on. People need the content.
Yeah, dude. Also, the Eagles loss was so sad, dude. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? They got there. It was a great game. It was fun to watch. They deserved to win. So did the Chiefs. So I can't it's sad, but we have a quarterback. And that's important because when you have a quarterback, you're always gonna be in the mix. So we'll see. I'm happy football's done for now. I need my Sundays back. So I'm sure come June or July I'll be ready for it back. But right now I'm kind of relieved it's done. But anyway, all right. Thanks everyone. Talk to you next week.